Nobody wants to get united. Like, what we gotta do is meet everybody on 49th Street at the bench.
Welcome back to the bench, ladies and gentlemen. So recently I came up with a video talking about the top 5 mistakes I see new graffiti artists make in hand styles. You can watch that in the cards if you haven't seen it already. But I figured today, why don't we talk about the top 5 mistakes I see new graffiti artists make in throw-ups? Feel free to leave what you believe to be some common mistakes for throw-ups in the comments down below. Throw-ups are one of those things I see in graffiti where most graffiti artists struggle with early on. While some graffiti artists, yes, have an easy time doing throw-ups, the majority struggle tremendously on this part of graffiti. And the reason for this is because mistake number 1. Letter structure doesn't work quite the same in throw-ups as it does in other forms of graffiti. While yes, letter structure is still there and you still need to maintain letter structure, the rounder edges to the letters and the lack of negative space in throw-ups ends up distorting letter structures more times than not. And newer graffiti artists don't know how to kind of control that. And as a result, a lot of their letters lack structure. Now obviously the more advanced you become, the more you can kind of do whatever it is you'd like. But for newer graffiti artists, they struggle a ton with this. Mistake number 2, they overlap their letters too much. In throw-ups, it's widely known that your letters are pretty close together, and this makes overlapping kind of a necessity. And this is where an experienced graffiti artist would either overlap properly, or they would use the technique called drawing through, where despite 2 letters overlapping, you'd still see the line going through one of the other letters partially. And they do that properly in order to go ahead and suggest structure. New graffiti artists haven't quite gotten a handle on that yet, and they just put one letter right on top of the next, completely covering a huge part of one of the letter structures, which distorts the letter entirely. This is a huge downside and not something you want to do for your throw-ups. You have to give your letters room to breathe. You have to make sure that each letter is visible. Mistake number 3, they have way too much negative space. Whether it's from positioning the letters a little bit too far away, or whether it's your open counters are way too open, or your closed counters are also way too open, negative space is highly diminished in throw-ups. Now yes, more advanced graffiti artists can have throw-ups with lots of negative space, sure. But many new graffiti artists who try to add lots of negative space end up just distorting everything and their throw-up goes downhill because of it. And this leads us right back to the letter structure issue. When a new graffiti artist tries to add that much negative space to a throw-up, they in turn raise the letter structure, which ends up more times than not making the letters into a straight letter instead of a throw-up, which are 2 very different things. Throw-ups function in this really gray area where they lack structure just enough to not be a straight letter, but they still have enough structure to be the letter. Number 4. They don't know how to suggest structure properly. Oftentimes when you have a line like this one in the end, it'll come pretty far in, so like that line coming that far indicates where the actual boxes of the letter would land. This way the person looking at the throw-up can identify what the letter's structure actually is supposed to be. With newer graffiti artists, they don't bring these lines to a far enough point to where it's able to suggest the structure effectively, or sometimes they'll leave out those lines entirely. And simply just adding a line like this, for example on the back of an E, can really help your throw-up gain structure just by drawing one simple line, as to where not drawing that line on various different letters can highly diminish letter structure. And in some cases that can be kind of crucial. Mistake number 5 is they don't pay attention to their cap height, their baseline, and their mean line. If you guys know anything about letter and name positioning, their letters are all over the place. They're not really lining up the way they should. And this not only diminishes flow, it can mess with letter structure, it adds negative space, and it throws off the letter and name weights. And all of this just because the letter and name positioning was off. If you put all of your letters on the baseline, this is a really good point to start at. Experienced graffiti artists know this, and they can even mess with this fundamental by slanting the entire baseline. But even when they do this, you'll notice all of the letters are still working on that slant. Now, I see new graffiti artists make a plethora of mistakes, but I want you guys to leave that in the comments down below. Once again, if you haven't seen the top 5 mistakes graffiti artists make on hand styles, be sure to watch that video. It'll be up in the card somewhere. It's a pretty good video. And if you're new here, feel free to check out our other videos. We have a ton of graffiti content here. It's the best place for graffiti information anywhere online. So join the smartest graffiti community online by subscribing. I'll catch you guys next time. Until then, peace.